Greetings, brethren, it is I, the Donkey, back with the German Beer Week, where I will show you some more different kinds of German beer, so you're not left thinking that all we have is lager, or that, lager is just one type of beer, which it isn't. If you're autistic enough like the Germans, then lager can be like 5 different kinds of beer. Anyway, today we're not talking about lager, today we are talking about Schwarzbier, which is black beer. Now, what is Schwarzbier or black beer? I think a lot of people, when they think of, beer that is really dark, they think of something that's a stronger beer. But actually, most really dark beers are often they often have a lower alcohol content than lighter beers. It's actually the sort of brown beers that you have to worry about. They are generally the ones with the higher alcohol content. Also, I would like to say one thing. I absolutely despise beer from cans. I think it's heresy. I think that it tastes disgusting. And I know that this isn't a common problem. It's really just me because I don't know, my taste buds are super high sensitive, I suppose. I don't know. But I can taste the can. And I hate that with beer. I don't mind it so much with sodas or sparkling water, stuff like that. I think the metallic taste works a little bit better with that stuff. But with beer, I find it unbelievably obnoxious. The problem is, it's kind of difficult to get Koestritzer Schwarzbier, as this is, anywhere where I live in bottles. I've seen it in 6-packs, but I don't really want a 6-pack of it because I'm not actually that big on it. But let's have a crack. Not nearly as satisfying as a bottle, I must say. But as you can see, what we get is a lovely, lovely dark beer with also a very, very dark foam. Yeah. So Schwarzbier is an interesting one because it's not actually that incredibly popular in Germany. There are other dark kinds of beer that are much more popular in other regions of the world. For example, Irish Stout or Imperial Stout. You've probably heard of those. Those are much more popular. And also, if any Irish people just watched me pour this, they'd probably think, oh my goodness, he ruined the pint. But no, Schwarzbier is very, very, very different from a stout. A stout is a different kind of beer altogether. Despite its color, this is actually a rather light beer with a relatively low amount of fizz comparatively, and you don't want to put too much head on this beer, in my opinion. It doesn't really last, as the Guinness, for example, has that lovely silky head if you pour it really well, and this doesn't really have that. It's a very different kind of thing. But cheers. Yep. The only way this is similar to Guinness is the alcohol volume. A Guinness is about 4.6, I want to say, 4.5, 4.7, something like that. It's definitely way under 5%. This is 4.8 as well. It's just not as alcoholic of a beer as what you would expect from a pale lager or a pilsner. It's a much more sort of it's definitely a drinking beer, right? It's one that you just enjoy and you have a bunch of, I guess, if you really like it. But it's not. It doesn't. It's not for really getting drunk that much. It's not what it's made for. But let's talk about what this actually tastes like. So the difference, I would say, between this and a stout, or specifically, Guinness is the one that everybody knows. This is a lot more, it has a lot more characteristics of, I would say, a coffee or a smoked bacon. It's very smoky. It's very sort of, there's a very roasted aroma to it. That's obviously also where the color comes from, because you use very much roasted malts to make this. But it doesn't have that sort of depth and just light hints of sour notes that you get with stout. And stout is just overall, I think, a deeper flavor profile. There's a lot more going on there. I mean, people often say that to them, a Guinness is like a meal. You drink a Guinness and it's almost like eating a meal. And that's because there's a lot going on there. And with this, I would personally say it's a lot more simple. There's a lot less going on in different areas. So it is very smoky. It is very, you have that absolute, that roasted taste to it. It also lingers quite a bit. So I would very much compare this a lot more to a coffee, where you drink it and then that sort of roasted aroma, it just lingers and lasts and it sticks around for a while. That's what that's like. It is definitely low on the fizz level as well. If you don't like overly fizzy beers, you might be more into this kind of thing, because it just has a hint of a fizz going on. It's not like a Pilsner or like a pale lager or any of those other beers that I already described that have a lot of carburation. This is a lot more subtle, and you can probably let this sit for a while as well. But it also has quite a lot more carburation than a Guinness does. A good Guinness doesn't actually have that much. It just has enough to give you a little bit of a tingle, just a tingle. And this does have a bit more of a bit more than just a tingle, as evidenced by that. But it's overall very mild in terms of that, and it doesn't have a lot of that sort of. There's no acrid aftertaste. There's nothing that punches you in the throat or anything. You can very much keep drinking this throughout the evening and be totally fine. I can already taste the can again, which I hate. And I despise it. I wish I could, if I could get this in bottles, I would probably drink this more often. But since I can only ever find this in cans, I just don't bother, because it kind of ruins the experience for me, especially when I drink it from the can. It is actually better now that because, spoilers, I don't actually usually drink beers from a glass. I do this for the videos, because it's fun to pour a pint, I suppose, which is also why my pouring skills are kind of crap, because I usually just drink from the bottle, because I'm lazy. But it is already better by having it from the glass, so I might do that in the future, actually. Yeah. Again, I think the most sort of the main association that I have with this is definitely coffee. It has that same sort of aroma of just, roasted grain, or beans, I suppose, in the case of coffee. But that sort of roasted aroma, it really comes through in this black beer, and it is something completely different. The flavor profile between this and a Pilsner or a pale lager or even a wheat beer is just so completely different. And it's also very different from a stout. So if you've had stout before, this is still going to surprise you in some ways, because it's just not the same thing. It is very much a different kind of that sort of thing, right? If that makes sense. Obviously, the main difference, of course, between this and a stout would be that this is also brewed by the German purity commandment. So all of that stuff that they do with Guinness, with the fish bladder extract and all that to clarify it, that's not done with this. This is done with regular. It's late. I'm sorry. With regular clarifying methods that don't involve fish bladder, which is used with a lot of ales and stouts. It just gives it that different character that a German beer has. So it's kind of, I suppose, if a stout or really heavy ale was a German beer, I suppose that's how I would describe it. But it is definitely something interesting. So if you are ever in Germany, or you can at some point find this. I mean, this specifically, Koestritzer Schwarzbier, is the most popular Schwarzbier that we have in Germany, by far. It's the one that you will find pretty much everywhere. If you could ever get your hands on this, I would definitely give this a go. It's worth a try. If you're just curious, right? For regular drinking, if you like a beer with a little bit less alcohol because you don't want to get super drunk or your tolerance isn't amazing, then yeah, it's also something I would absolutely recommend. It's a decent beer. It's certainly interesting, and it's one that I definitely enjoy a lot more in the fall months. I've had a lot of Schwarzbier in the winter and in the fall months, and it's so much more enjoyable then, because the food you eat in those months is also a lot more savory. So this doesn't stand out as much. You know, it doesn't overpower your food while you're having it. It's just overall pretty nice. I will say, though, it's not something that I particularly seek out, because when I am looking for that more savory, smoky kind of beer, I personally prefer to go for Bock or for Rotbier, which we'll be looking at in other videos. So I'm going to give Koestritzer Schwarzbier... Oh, the Bavarians are gonna hate me, but I am gonna give this a higher rating than the Paulaner Weissbier. So I'm gonna give this a 6.5 out of 10. I think it's pretty good. It's pretty decent for what it is, and if you're looking for that kind of experience, then you can really do much worse than this. It's really fine, but try to get it out of a bottle because cans are just terrible. All right, cheers.